When people think about non-attachment, they often make the mistake of thinking that it must mean being somehow distant and not involved in life. They think of the ascetic, hermit, or the renunciate monk who has given up everything. Non-attachment is, in some sense, seen as indifference. To an extent, I feel that I may have reinforced this view myself. For example, in my recent video about spirituality, making you more rational, in which I compared non-attachment to the objectivity of the scientific method. This video is the antidote to that view. I want to present the possibility of a passionate engagement with life while pursuing non-attachment. Not just compassionate, but one filled with passion, pleasure, and emotion. My desire to do this is partially inspired by the discussion of reason and emotion in the book Spirituality for the Skeptic, which I recently reviewed. In the chapter, Spirituality as Rationality, a conception of spirituality which is close to my own heart, Solomon rails against the idea that reason and emotion are somehow opposed to each other. For example, in this quote, "An emotion is not so much an element or item in experience as it is the ordering of experience. Love, quite the contrary to interfering with rational order in our lives, puts our priorities right. Anger, even when it is clearly inappropriate or irrational, does not so much intrude as reorders our priorities. Emotional experience is not a phenomenon in our heads, so to speak. It is the ordering structure of our being in the world. This ordering structure is nothing less than rationality. Emotions constitute the framework or frameworks of rationality itself. In this ordering of priorities, of course, we find the seed of preference, of desiring one thing that we prioritize over another that we do not. This, the proponents of classical spiritual ideas about non-attachment might say, leads our happiness to be dependent on external things we cannot control, and then to suffering when life inevitably doesn't go exactly as we would have wished it. Solomon himself hints at one possible solution to this when he says, "We would not go far wrong in thinking of rationality and thus spirituality too, as having the right emotions or caring about the right sort of things." Spirituality is thus conceived as the kind of selective vision he mentions elsewhere in the book, as emotional control rather than the lack of emotions, and therefore as the intentional reordering of our priorities. I can think of two ways this can be done. The first is through selflessness and virtue, compassion and love, including the love for abstract good such as wisdom or justice, may allow for an emotional engagement with the world, which does not leave our happiness dependent on particular outcomes for ourselves. The second is through the Stoic call to focus only on things that are in our control and to learn to accept that which isn't. This, I would suggest, is also present within calls to be present or live in the moment, to focus our emotional life on what is without being emotionally attached to what could be or what has already happened. In either of the above examples, a form of non-attachment is practiced while maintaining an emotional and passionate life. Perhaps a third is hinted at in the biblical story of Abraham. In this story, the original patriarch of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is commanded to create a ritual sacrifice of his son Isaac, killing him and burning his body. Abraham is willing to do this and goes ahead with the preparations, but at the last minute, God interjects and replaces Isaac with a ram. What the God of this parable is saying is that you don't need to sacrifice your family members, but you need to be capable of it. There must be nothing in your life with a higher priority than your spirituality. So perhaps we do not need to sacrifice our worldly attachments to our families, our jobs, our hobbies, and our little pleasures in life. Not in terms of physical detachment from these things, but we need to be capable of it. There needs to be part of us, somewhere inside us, which remains untouched by the world. What do you think? Is it possible to practice non-attachment and still be passionate and emotional? Do you have any examples from your own life where you succeeded in doing this?